Fox has actually been giving me some pretty decent stories to work off of. Welcome back to One of My Podcasting. You know, of course, whoever that one person was that always said, do a proper intro and outro. Okay, a proper intro and outro. Got it. Okay. Well, there was one story they talked about, and I forget what the story was that I actually talked about on my Broadcasters podcast this past week. What was it? It was Anything Cool Anymore. So take a look at my Broadcasters podcast in this past week, episode 183. You can find the show from July 16th over at broadcasterspodcast.com. I put the story over there. I would put it on one of these episodes here, but it was just such a large story to talk about. Maybe I'll go ahead and come back into it, but again, there was just so much to put in there, and it really put into about influencer marketing. That's what really the whole story was about. But we're going to talk about influencer marketing here, because now there's a story that comes in now from Rebecca Jennings at Vox talking about how should an influencer sound. So, yeah, YouTube speak or influencer speak, and the way that some people kind of instruct even TikTokers of how you're supposed to put a video together based on, how a YouTube video is done and how they perform based on the algorithm. Well, as you would know, I don't do that. I just don't. Oh, hey guys, gimmick. Oh, make sure to go and follow and share my YouTube feed so you'll never miss a show. Go along and then plug, and then finish your segment. I don't do that. I'm a radio guy. I'm a old school radiophile. When I do radio like I've done before, this is a segment on a show. So if I had a commercial break, I would come back and do a segment like this. And for those of you podcasters out there that are learning about podcasting and you hear me what I'm saying here, then you could understand where I'm coming from, because it's just something that I just do that's very simple. It's like a segment on the radio show. If I was doing a 3-4 hour show in a day, and I had all these stories that I do for One of My Podcasting, I would probably put them into one episode and do it. Like right now, behind the scenes, let's go ahead and pull the curtain back, if you will, the fourth wall. I'm recording 7 episodes right now for episodes of One of My Podcasting that will run between now and probably the end of July or into August, depending on what happens. Because if there's other episodes that come up, I might just move certain timeless episodes down the line to a later date. But I make sure I get some of these timeless episodes done so that I always have a good stockpile of episodes to put out for all of you, which I put out now every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday right here on this channel. Whether you're listening on YouTube or you listen to the audio feed where you listen to the episodes first, okay? These episodes come out first on the audio feed where you can go and look for, if you want to go to kingofpodcasts.com and then go to KOP Radio Network at the top of the menu, you go ahead and find the show. Or you can just look for When I'm Not Podcasting or wherever you find podcasts. All major podcast portals have it. So there's been data that's been tracked about how there is a sonic similarity in YouTubers, regardless of their content. And for as long as YouTube has existed, people have lamented the phenomenon of the YouTube voice, or the slightly exaggerated, overpronounced manner of speaking beloved by video essayists, drama commentators, and DIY experts on the platform. Hey guys, I don't do that. What's up and good morning. How you doing? Hey guys, I can't do that. It's not in my nature to do that. It's just not me. But then again, I'm the kind of person that does a podcast, and when I do it, I process the audio. I make sure it sounds really nice and good. I am using the Shure MV7 microphone, just like the MV7 USB, which is just like the M7 that everybody else uses around. If it's not, they're using a different microphone. But I use the microphone a certain way, but I do it in radio style. I process it so it's the optimal sound that I can have. Plus, I make sure my voice has got the good richness, the good sound. You can hear every word I'm saying. Every letter sounds crisp. That's what I like to do. Or some people, they don't go to the trouble of that, but I like doing that. I like to make everything just sound good. Normalize it, set it up so that every word sounds good, so that when you're listening on a radio, this is the trick, by the way, little trick from your King of Podcasts. You like to go ahead and make sure that you process the audio and make sure that you try to keep the room as quiet as possible when you're doing this, because what happens is, if you're listening in the car or if you're listening wherever you are, and, if you have somebody listening on and they have their volume set to a certain level, even if you turn it down, you're still able to hear every word that's being said. So some people want to be able to listen to a podcast at a certain volume that stays level, as opposed to one that goes very loud or they go really quiet and they're all the way in the back. We want to make sure it's done in a certain way. So that's what happens here. Sorry for the overmodulation there, folks. I don't like doing that, but that's just to prove a point. Now, actual scholars have attempted to describe what YouTube voice sounds like. Now, Vice talked to speech pathologist and PhD candidate Aaron Hall, saying there are two things that are happening here. One is the actual segments they're using, the vowels and consonants. They're over-enunciating compared to casual speech, which is something newscasters or radio personalities do. Yes, we all do that. But you need to just be able to speak proper English. Now, I kind of fumble around once in a while. I do that because if I'm trying to read something, maybe I will kind of stumble a little bit. But I'm not trying to stutter. I'm not trying to go ahead and struggle to go and get my words out. Now, I can always stop the tape and do whatever, but I don't. I like to kind of keep things in real time. That's how I like to do things. Second, they're trying to keep it more casual, even if what they're saying is standard, adding a different kind of intonation that makes it more engaging to listen to. Right. Yeah. You don't want to sound like you're reading from a script. That's what a lot of people are taught. And that's a good way to go. Now, into this investigation of the YouTube voice, The Atlantic drew from several linguists to determine what specific qualities this manner of speaking shares. By the way, this took me a long time to get to my point to where I'm at now, where I speak properly on radio. Because if you talk to me when I first started doing podcasting on my own, 9 years ago doing the wrestling podcast, I was still kind of like fumbling over my words. And really, it's only been in the last 5 years I've really got my voice right to the right point that I sound proper. And you know what you do? Another little bit of podcasting advice. Listen back to what you do. Always listen back. Cringe at your mistakes. Listen to yourself fumbling up because you won't do it anymore. I guarantee you listen to yourself back and you listen and compare yourself to other podcasters or radio hosts. And you make sure you listen. And also, keep in mind of the radio people that you listen to and the ones that are speaking proper. Honestly, you want to listen to somebody that really does talk radio and hear how they talk. Now, you could go with Colin Cowherd. You could go with a conservative talk host. You could go with, a number of people. Or there's people that from the past that I can always recommend that you listen to and hear what they do. One of my favorites was Casey Kasem. He hosted American Top 40. If you listen to me talk enough, I've talked about this. So that is something about Casey Kasem, his delivery, his approach, his sound, that was wonderful. And I really, it's a lot to take from him and from other people. Shadow Stevens was a great example that I listened to. The way they tell stories, the way they read. Also because they're scripted when they were doing that show. But it didn't sound like it. It was so natural. When you're able to go and do that, and you can also read from a script or read from a story, and you can naturally bring it in, wonderful. Now, in this story, more from the story from Atlantic that Vox is mentioning here, they determine what specific qualities the manner of speaking shares. All about pronunciation and pacing on camera. It takes more effort to keep someone interested. So they also mentioned exaggerated hand and facial motions, changing a pacing that gets your attention. None of the YouTubers tend to overstress both vowels and consonants, and someone saying exactly like exactly, right? She guesses that's the style in terms of for what they see from informal news broadcast programs or infotainment like The Daily Show. And Mark Lieberman from the University of Pennsylvania, he says it bluntly, it's intellectual used car salesman voice. Okay, I don't know if that sounds like a guy that's a little bit out of touch. But again, we're talking about a University of Pennsylvania, professor here. Also calling it a carnival barker. Well, I bet you that guy's probably never been to a carnival before. Yeah, he probably don't know. Now, the same thing's starting to be said that's happening now. It's proliferating, they said. There's a Scrabble word. On TikTok, as soon as the app started going mainstream. Most instances were essentially 60-second versions of YouTube videos, dudes pointing to an image or a graph while explaining whatever factoids went alongside it, or giving scripted hot takes on some depressing political event. Now, more into this, The sort of speech that typically associates with female influencers by virtue of the job assumes that they are there to endear themselves to the audience or present a trustworthy sales pitch. But what's most interesting to watch about YouTube voice and the influencer accent, there's an accent now. I didn't know about that. Well, I don't want to be that accent. I want to be different. I'm a nonconformist, damn it. Is how normal people have adapted to it in their own regular person TikTok videos and Instagram stories. Listen, if you hear me do TikTok videos, which I do quite a bit about wrestling and other things, similar to when I'm not podcasting, I'm doing my voice. I'm doing this voice. The other thing is, I don't like to, add intonation or add, some kind of extra inflection. I can do that. I'll do that for my voiceover stuff. This is what I use for voiceovers. This movie phone. I'll do that. But I would never do that into normal conversation. You want somebody that just has a natural speaking voice. This is the way I talk all the time. Maybe a little bit of change in voice when I'm kind of making a point, but that's about it. Now, if you listen closely to enough people's front-facing camera videos, you'll hear a voice that's somewhere between a TED Talk and sponsored content, perhaps even within your own social circles. Is this a sign that as influencer culture bleeds into our everyday lives, many of the quirks that professionals use will become normal for us too? So they're trying to say that social platforms and the people that are using these social platforms and recording content are starting to sound more like salespeople. I don't know so much about that. It depends on who you're listening to. Plus, remember, those that are well orchestrated and choreographed and scripted, and there's certain people that have a certain audience that are just using a gimmick. And that's why I say it is. It's like what we call in wrestling a gimmick. You have, this kind of a format of what you do a show. You keep it consistent. People come for that. Almost the gimmick that we had, 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever. A lot of different people used to have a gimmick. Used to have things that were like catchphrases and things like that. One of my favorite, talking about gimmicks, you talk about a great gimmick was Chuck Barris on The Gong Show. Go look that up on YouTube, folks. If you have not watched that. Chuck Barris kind of looked like he was a little bit out of it on coke, changing hats on a regular basis, clapping his hands on a regular basis, introducing the next act on the show. A funny-ass show. Funny-ass show. If you've never watched it, I would recommend it myself. That was a gimmick. It kind of fits the same way here about somebody having a character and having this kind of developed character and then working off of it. And that's the idea. So what really asks of this, however, is a lot more difficult than imitating an influencer's voice. It's acting. So the skill that's notoriously tricky to nail convincingly, but also even more so when the person we're acting as ourselves at our most comfortable relax. So it's not exactly the YouTube creator's fault that they're unable to stop themselves from sounding either cringy or smug or annoying or whatever. And it's certainly not a regular person's fault that they can't turn themselves off and on at will. Well, yeah, you're going to do that. There is a point when you have a radio voice where you're on air, the camera's on, the mic's hot, and you just turn on. That's what happens. We all do that. There's not anybody that you talk to regularly that just turns into that. Clubhouse doesn't have that kind of feel. But YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, absolutely people have that feel. So I can understand where they're coming from there. It's not a bad point that Vox points over here. There are some people that are doing that. But yeah, do find a way to go into your voice. Make sure to not go monotone. Don't think NPR, especially when you're doing video, you need to be flowery. You need to be exciting. You need to go ahead and, hand speak. All that does work. But what's interesting, too, as a little caveat as I wrap this episode up, is the fact that so many of the influencers out there, I love the fact that they're using radio equipment. They're not trying to go and use a lavalier. They might be using a ring light, but for the most part, you see a lot of the influencers, they're on regular video setups. They got the short microphone, they got whatever microphone they're using, propped up on a crane, on a desk, whatever, and they're doing their shows. And I love it. So radio still lives. It's just in podcasting and also in video form. And that's a good thing. I do enjoy all of that. There's just not enough time to listen to all of it. And I know sometimes some of those shows are so long, I can't listen to the whole thing. So it's nice to go to TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, whatever, and see clips. Somebody will have pulled clips for me. That's wonderful. But for a show like this, I keep it short. Maybe not this one. This one about 15 minutes. But I think you get where I was coming from. Anyway, I'll leave it there and I'll talk to you next time.